Kuda Biza. What an absolute pleasure to talk to Kuda. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's also a social entrepreneur, a term that I was unfamiliar with before talking with Kuda. He was in Zimbabwe at 9 years old. He decided to start a business cleaning windows, and how that all started is really fascinating. He wanted ice cream. His mother said no, and he said, "I want my own money." And away he went. He knew he wanted to get to the States to go to school. He had to get internet access. He applied at an internet cafe and would sleep there at night to get access so he could do his SATs. Just fascinating man. He runs more than one company. One is called None Believable, where it's a cookie company, and he says it right in the discussion. We don't need another cookie company, but for every box is sold, they donate 2 meals to a soup kitchen. 40 million Americans struggle with hunger. Another company, Signables, started another company in college where he donates education. He talks about education in Africa, where you actually have to pay public school. You have to pay. It's $10 or $20 a year, and some still can't afford that. So he's helped over 150 youths get education through a t-shirt company that he made. He has a TED talk. He wrote a book on the SPEAR method, SPEAR, seek, plan. I'm not going to tell you the last three. You will figure that out, or you will hear it when you listen to Kuda speak. But he's a captivating speaker, very, very smart. The way his grays, the way not everything is just kind of so black and white. You got to define and plan. Fascinating discussion. Love talking with Kuda. I know you're going to like it as well. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Kuda Biza, thank you so much for your time today. While learning about you, I heard a term that I'm afraid I haven't heard before. Please tell us what a social entrepreneur is.
A social entrepreneur is basically someone who identifies a problem that they want to solve from a business perspective, but with a social impact attached to it. So think of Tom's shoes, right? He identified a problem where a lot of people were not wearing shoes, kids were going to school barefoot, and he decided to solve it by leveraging a business rather than a nonprofit. So that's what a social entrepreneur is.
So, how is it different from a nonprofit?
Well, your primary objective is to make a profit. Nonprofit, as you can hear the words, it's a not-for-profit organization. But a social venture, you're basically a for-profit organization with a social mission.
Yeah, because the nonprofit at the end of the year has to spend all their profit. They can't have any profit. So now
Not
with your
necessarily, you can report a surplus if you're a nonprofit.
ah,
You don't have, there's no obligation for you to spend everything. You can put
interesting.
money as a reserve. The only thing is your mission is not to generate profits. So like if
Hmm.
you are a for-profit entity, Your obligation to shareholders or the board is to generate a return for your investors if you're a for-profit business. But in a social venture, basically you're saying that we're going to generate a profit, but we're going to make a commitment to use a portion of that profits to solve this social issue. That's really the key distinguisher there. The other difference is that a nonprofit can get donations.
Mm.
A social venture, because you're a for-profit entity, you don't get a donation. Um, and people can't donate to you because then they don't get any tax breaks, right? So that's
Hmm.
the key.
So I guess that let's launch right into Nunbelievable. There was some nuns there in San Francisco, and you were able to help them. And now, talking about a social issue, a mission is you say 40 million Americans struggle with hunger. Every box, so you make these great cookies, and Nunbelievable, and every box that you sell, 2 meals go to soup kitchens.
Yeah, so obviously the world doesn't need another cookie company. So in our mind, we saw a group of nuns that were baking cookies and using the money to support a soup kitchen in San Francisco where they were feeding, about 400 people a day. But the nuns weren't really interested in building a brand that would go into retail and get mass distribution. And we saw an opportunity where we could take inspiration from them and build a brand that does exactly that. Go national or maybe even international, spread awareness about the hunger issue in America, and then use the profits from the sales to help solve the issue. And that's what we're doing. And since we launched right before the pandemic up until now, we've donated over 1.6 million meals.
Wow.
But that's just a dent, in the bigger problem. So we're happy that we've been able to make the impact that we've made, but we also realize how early and small, like it's a drop within the ocean to the bigger picture that's out there.
It doesn't. I struggle to think of a country that has an obesity problem, an overweight problem, that still has 40 million that struggle with hunger.
Well, the connection is simple, Joe. The obesity issue is not caused by a surplus in food. It's caused by the quality of food we eat, right? So that's number one.
Hmm.
Number two, um, there's a huge hunger issue, mainly because if you think about certain areas, there's a high cost of living. So we were talking about San Francisco earlier, right? If you have two kids, and so it's a family of four, if you're making about 100,000 US dollars, basically you're at the poverty line because your cost of living is so expensive that you're not able to provide your family with 3 meals a day. If you live in other areas of America, 100,000 is a lot of money, but
Yeah.
in certain areas it's not enough. But then you also have people who are either homeless, people who don't have a steady source of income, and those are the people that are vulnerable, right? Because if you're homeless and you don't have a job, yes, there's an obesity issue within the country, but for you personally yourself, you're starving.
Mm.
So that's the dichotomy of the issue that we face here in America.
Yeah, certainly. And your story of growing up in Zimbabwe, and at I believe it was 9 years old, right? You took it upon yourself to clean some windows. You started a business. You eventually started doing sales and hired your friends to do the work. Very, very entrepreneurial at a young age.
Yeah, but that was really by accident, like they say that necessity is the mother of invention. I had a need, and the only way I could meet that need was figure out a way to make money. So the way it actually started was I wanted to have ice cream, and I went to my mom and I asked her for money for ice cream. She said no. And for me, I didn't want that to be the end of it. So I started asking myself, like, hey, how can I have more control of my ice cream destiny? And the answer was simple to me, which was if I had my own money, I wouldn't need to rely on my mom. So let me just figure out a way to make more money. And it just so happened I, put two and two together. There were dirty windows in front of me. I took a bucket, some cleaning supplies, and went to my neighbor. And I don't know if it was my amazing sales pitch or maybe she just felt pity or she really just needed her windows cleaned. The bottom line is she said yes. And that's all I needed to at that point in time. And, when I got that $5, the feeling I had of joy and excitement, I didn't want it to end. So I just kept on looking for more windows to clean and built a small little business that kept me busy and out of trouble over the summer. And it also gave me unlimited ice cream during that summer.
Mm. Yes, as I'm sure it did. And you're very modest. I don't know how many would have seized that opportunity, but you also talk about you wanted to get to the States, and a lot of your friends didn't said the same thing, but they weren't going to do it. They just said
Mhm.
it, and so you decided to work at an internet cafe because you realized you needed internet access to apply to colleges, and you worked their night shift, and then you would sleep there just to get access to the internet, the SATs. But you had a great quote when you were describing this. You said, "Don't focus on the resources; be resourceful."
Yeah, and that's it. And it's not just for my story, really. It's for any entrepreneur. Think of the countless entrepreneurs who have amazing ideas, but they don't have the resources, right? You could be in college or university and you see a problem, you're very energized to fix it, but you don't have the funding or the resources for you to build it. You're going to need to be resourceful. You're going to need to be scrappy, working in your dorm room and maybe getting some people to come in and work and maybe pay them in equity instead of actually paying them. So that's a key lesson I think anybody in life should think about. And you look into what's happening in the economy right now, the inflation rates are high. I think anyone needs to think about how you can do more with less.
Hmm.
And that's a key lesson because the resources sometimes are out there, but you just need to think creatively as to how to get the resources versus just the normal, okay, let me pay for this and get it, right? Back in the days, people used to barter trade, right?
Right.
In Africa, that was the way the economy worked. If I had a sack of peanuts and I needed maize, instead of me going to sell the peanuts and getting money to then go buy the maize, we'll just exchange. Hey, I have 25 kilos, you have 25 kilos. Okay, there you go. Boom. They've become resourceful.
But then to have the wherewithal could to apply to U.S. colleges, and come over here with I think you said $40. Uh, you
Hmm.
know, you know, go to college. In your dorm, you start a business where you're sending clothes back. You described this story of how some youths weren't going to school and you didn't know why, and you spent a day with them and you found out that they couldn't afford it. They were a home, or I'm sorry, their parents died. I think they were with their grandmother, and one of them just actually, I think her name was Sarah. You said she's just waiting to die, and you just never forgot that, and you brought that with you to the States. And when you went to college, you started a business to send clothes back and send education back. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, remember the business I started when I was 9? It basically taught me a key lesson. And the key lesson was that entrepreneurship is empowering, right? Because by providing value in the marketplace, you're able to extract that value and then use it for other things. One of the key insights regarding entrepreneurship to connect this to the story where I started the business in college was that before I even started my business cleaning windows when I was 9, there was a very significant event that happened when I was 7, which was a very severe drought hit Southern Africa. So Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, Mozambique, Namibia, there was no food. And I remember asking my father, because we were beneficiaries of food relief that came from organizations like World Vision. I asked him, where is World Vision getting the food that they're giving to us? And his
Mm,
answer was like, well, there's some businessmen, right, who are donating money to World Vision, and that's how they're able to purchase the food they're giving us. So I quickly realized that there are some entrepreneurs out there, social entrepreneurs, who are making money, but they're not just using the profits to enrich themselves,
mm,
but to actually make a difference. So when I came to America and I was able to be resourceful enough to start my t-shirt company, I remembered Sarah. I remembered the millions of African children that don't get a chance to get an education because public education in a lot of third world countries, so it's not just in Africa, it's there in Asia, it's there in Latin America and a few other areas across the world, is not free. So if you cannot pay for primary school education, if you cannot pay for elementary school education, you're not going to school.
wow.
And if you crunch the numbers, you'd actually find that sometimes it's as little as 20 to 40 US dollars a year to send someone to school for the year. So, in my mind, if I could create a t shirt company, generate profits from it, and use a portion of the profits to change a life, it's a no-brainer. It's a business with a purpose, something that I would want to spend my time doing. And with that business, we ended up educating over 150 students. Some of the students now are actually in the marketplace contributing. I got a email a couple of days ago of one of our students who actually went to medical school and now is impacting an entire village through the education that she received in the medical field. So if we had not supported her to finish her high school, think about the thousands of people that are now, you know, getting medical help through her hands
Mm,
that would not have been possible if I had simply given into a fear or an insecurity or whatever it is that could have stopped me from taking that idea into reality. So it's super important for us when we have these ideas to actually then take action and follow through because the impact is just beyond us. Sometimes the impact affects entire generations.
mm,
So this girl in particular, her parents, both her parents had passed away, so she's an orphan. And if we didn't step in to help her finish her education, she was going to be married off, living on a farm somewhere, and probably in poverty. But now, herself, her kids, and probably her kids' kids are
mm.
going to have a totally different life simply because she got an education. But also, thousands of people are now going to live an extra day or
Mm.
even more or even years because of the healthcare that she's going to provide them in her career.
It's incredibly rewarding. I saw that incredibly rewarding. Your major, you were double major. You were business, which I can understand, but why aviation?
Yeah, so aviation for me, it was simple mainly because I had a passion of flying. One of my neighbors growing up was a pilot. And he would always come back home and tell me all the adventures he used to do when he would go to England, all across Africa. And he would show me pictures. He would give me the in-flight magazine. Sometimes he would even bring back the food from first class. And, I wanted to travel and see the world. But I knew that aviation wasn't my calling, so to say. It was more of like something I wanted to do recreationally. So when I found an institution that enabled me to pursue aviation, which was my hobby, but also get into a program where I would be in business, for me it was like this is perfect
Mm.
because I get to, pursue my passion as well as also pursue my calling. So in life, sometimes you only get one chance, and this was that one chance for me to do it, and I did it. It was a lot of work. It wasn't easy, but I loved every single minute of it, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity to do it.
Do you still fly now?
No, not as much as I would, but I do fly a lot as a passenger,
As a passenger,
but
yeah.
not in the cockpit. It takes a lot of time. You have to obviously sharpen the pencil a lot, and I'm in a point in my life right now where I'm in a season of building multiple businesses. So I just have to be focused on that. But at some point, maybe we'll sell one of the companies or maybe all of the companies, and I'll get more time on my hands to go back into the air.
I'm a private pilot as well. I owned an Archer for a
Oh,
while.
nice.
Yeah, I did sell it 6 or 7 years ago, like yourself, and I haven't been back. But it was really I really enjoy flying. And one of the points you make is you have to have a flight plan, and in business you had to have a lesson plan. You actually learned and got more foundation of just planning and how to execute, which leads me to your TED talk and of course your book.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's quite simple, right? Imagine if you were to get on a plane and the captain announces that he doesn't have a plan on how we're going to get to the
Yeah.
destination. He's just going to wing it. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be comfortable getting on that flight. So, for me, the key thing really is every single day we're given an opportunity, if you get the chance to actually wake up in the morning, to to create a plan on how you want to live your life. If you let life come to you, and you're not taking more control, more responsibility, and thinking through what are the key actions you need to take to be in alignment with your purpose, you probably won't live a fulfilling life. But if you take the time to really think about what are the things that I want in my life, how do I define success, what are the things that fulfill me, and then intentionally allocate time to make sure that those things happen, right? That's the planning piece I'm talking about. You're probably going to enjoy a greater level of success in your life, but more importantly, a much, much higher degree of fulfillment, which is what you really want, is to have both success and fulfillment. And that's the whole thesis around the spear method, because I've met miserable millionaires, people who are highly successful, but they're not fulfilled.
Me too.
But I've also met people who have a lot of fulfillment. They love their life, but they're poor. They don't know how they're going to feed their family. Their kids want to do certain things, but the answer they give the kids is, we can't afford it, right?
Mm.
So I want to operate from a place of abundance, meaning that you can have it both, right? You can have a good life where you're able to provide for your family, you're able to give, right? But also at the same time, you're happy. You're doing the things that make you happy, and you're not having to sacrifice your happiness for the materialistic things. And for me, I think that is a good quality of life. And Tony Robbins once said,
Hmm.
the ultimate failure in life is success without fulfillment. So, how can you pursue success and fulfillment at the same time is really the holy grail of life, in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly is. And your TEDx is excellent, Kuda. And you mentioned the book. Your book came out, I believe, July of 2020. And the spear method, which is all caps, of course: seek, plan, execute, achieve, repeat. Please let us in on that. I love the way you describe it.
Yeah, so let's start with the first one, which is seek your purpose. Um, there's a famous quote by Mark Twain that says the two most important days in life are the day you're born and the day you find out why.
Mm.
I love that quote. But I think he left out another important day, which is every single day you act on your why. Because if you take
Mm.
the time to actually seek your purpose, and you know what your life purpose is, but you actually don't take action to fulfill that purpose, then what's the point?
Mm.
So, the first thing you want to do, obviously, is you want to understand purpose. And let's define purpose. Purpose is the reason why something exists. So for you, Joe, why do you exist, right?
Mm,
You want to take time and really thinking about what is your life's purpose, because once you understand that, you should consistently, persistently pursue that thing.
mm,
But in order for you to successfully do that, you have to go into the planning phase, right? So you seek your purpose and then you plan. So it could be launching a podcast. So you have to sit down and come up with a plan to say, like, hey, I want to inspire all these people. This is my life's calling. I've gone through all of these different things in my life. And in order for me to fulfill my purpose, the podcast is the thing that I'm going to do. But the podcast just doesn't happen, right? You sit down, you plan it, you think through everything, and then you go ahead and execute.
mm,
Because once you have a plan, your plan becomes your GPS, it becomes your roadmap that you then follow by taking the necessary steps in your pursuit of your purpose. And then you're going to achieve something, which is A. It could be 100% of your goal, right? And then you go back and you pick a higher purpose and you keep going. Or it could be 20%. And maybe you need to go back to the drawing table to your plan, rework it a little bit so that the next time you hit the next base, which leads to the R, which is the repeat, right? Because every time you come up with a plan, one thing I'll tell you is that usually it's wrong. But
mm.
the good thing about having a plan is that you always have something you can refer to, and then you quickly identify the areas that maybe you need to make changes in order for you to achieve the desired result. So that is really the SPEAR method. So if you spend the time in really thinking about what is my purpose, in the book, I share like a framework and certain questions you can ask to help you get to that point. And you could even ask your friends to share what makes you unique, because usually that unique thing that you have is aligned to your purpose. You can then start tinkering with that and coming up with a plan um, to go out and execute. And then if you do that, chances are you're probably going to live a more successful, more fulfilling life than
Mm.
if you actually don't take the time to do it.
It's a challenge to ask people what their purpose is. I should say it's a challenge for them to answer. It's an easy question. It's a challenge. I wonder how many people, if you asked, what do you think your purpose is? I wonder what their response would be. It might be just something quick, but that's a very deep question that everyone needs to answer and may change after the days, after the weeks, after the months.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And in life, if you're not ready to face the deep questions, to face the hard questions, what's the point, right?
Mm,
Martin Luther King once said, you know, you need to live a life, you're willing to die for, right? Like if a man who stands for nothing, like you stand for everything. Like there's nothing like that excites you or gets you moving and gets your heart beating, right? We all have a purpose, but sometimes it is that fear of finding the purpose or even just answering the question as to
mm,
what's my purpose that then puts people in kind of like the mediocre many, right? What you want to do is you want to be in the fantastic few. And the fantastic few are the people who actually take the time to ask and answer the hard questions. So you make the choice. Because at the end of the day, that's the one thing we were given, which is
mm.
willpower, right? So you have the ability to choose if you want to just live an average life, don't step outside of your comfort zone, don't confront the hard questions, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to confront the hard questions. I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone because guess what? Outside of your comfort zone, that's where the growth happens. Our brain naturally wants you to stay in your comfort zone. And the reason
Mm.
is the purpose for your brain is just to survive. That is your brain's assignment. If you just wake up tomorrow and you're alive, your brain is happy, it's done its job. But
Right.
if you want to do something beyond just surviving, which is thriving, you're going to have to push yourself to go against your brain because your brain standard is, hey, I just need to keep that heart beating. I just need to keep those lungs pushing. That's it. But if you want to thrive, you want something beyond that, you're going to need to step outside of your comfort zone.
All too often when I started taking cold showers, and as I enter the health benefits seem to be astounding. But as I even enter the bathroom before I do it, my brain is starting to tell me, "Don't do it. Don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be uncomfortable. Don't do it." It's like you said, it's kind of that fight or flight, right? And it's fascinating how we certainly as adults need to answer those hard questions. Your other company that you started, which is a phenomenal, is Signables, where you have like these major sport teams, and you're able to franchise with them. My team, of course, I know you're a Chelsea fan, but Manchester City, you have Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Grealish, Mahrez. It's absolutely incredible. Have you met any of these players? Do you get to meet
Some
any
of
of
them,
them?
yeah, I have. Where are you based?
I'm the Northeast. I'm in New York, out of New
Okay,
York, New Haven. Yeah, yeah.
cool. So yeah, so that's part of the reason why I started the business is I wanted the opportunity to meet a lot of these players, and just have relationships with these clubs. So I've met Cesar Spilicueta, the Chelsea captain. I've
Yes.
met Tony Adams, who used to be the former Arsenal captain. I've met Jack Harrison, he plays for Leeds United,
Mm.
and a few others that I'm blanking right now. A few players on the Mexican team. So there's a lot of stuff that we've done that's fun and exciting, and there's even more things that we're going to be doing over the next few months that we're going to be rolling out. But again, this is an opportunity that literally just came out of nowhere, and I was willing to step outside of the comfort zone and chase it. And now we have a business. We're selling in Dick's Sporting Goods. We're going to be launching with Target pretty soon. And now we have a fantastic relationship with the NFL. We now also have a relationship with the MLB. We're going to be launching a product with the U.S. women's national team. The World Cup for the women's is going to be this year, and we're going to play a big part in it. And for me, it's something that I just love to do because I'm a big sports fanatic. But I also wanted to make sure that I just don't passively participate in sports, but I also leverage my talents, my knowledge, and my skills to actually make the fan experience a little bit better. And we're doing this through the Signables collection and some other innovative products that I'm not at the liberty to disclose at this moment, but pretty soon they're going to be hitting a shelf near you, or you're going to be finding them online as you're searching for sporting merchandise.
It's amazing to me that I think you said the genesis of that is a good friend of yours had an idea and you both kind of got together and here it is. But you s- you you're a true serial entrepreneur. I mean, you see these opportunities, you pursue them, and it takes a lot of your time. How do you? You took time. I heard you say that if you don't manage it, in your calendar, it's not going to get done. But I mean, you're doing a lot of work for a lot of organizations. How do you do it?
It looks like I'm doing a lot of work.
Does it?
Yeah, but when you're having fun, it doesn't feel like it's a lot of
Right.
work.
Right.
But in all honesty, I have an amazing team. I've quickly figured out what I'm really good at,
Mm.
and I just try to stick in that lane. Now, the key thing is if you really stick at one thing and you become very good at it, you also become very efficient, right? Because now I can do the same thing faster than if I was doing multiple things and not focusing on what I'm good at. So because I just focus on what I'm really, really good at, I become very efficient at it. So if last year, if it took me an hour to maybe do something, maybe now it takes me 30 minutes. So within the hour now I can do two things, right? Like deliver two outputs, whereas before I could only deliver one. And by being that efficient, you can now crank out more things in
Mm.
the same time slot. So it might feel as if I'm doing a lot of work on the outside. You're like, how does he do it? Well, It's just a level of mastery. Like Bruce Lee said, he fears the man who's practiced the same kick 10,000 times than a man who's practiced 10,000 kicks once.
Mm,
Because the person who's practiced the same kick 10,000 times, he only just needs to get a hold of you once and it's
yeah.
over. But the person who's been practicing this kick, practicing that kick, there's never really that killer move. So for me, I know what I'm really good at, and I just focus on that and then bring in experts in other areas that I'm not good at, have them focus on that, and now it becomes a Swiss Army knife, right?
Hmm.
Where whatever problem we're faced, we pick out the right tool or the right person to go focus on that, and we move very, very efficiently in doing that. Versus if I was to try to do that job, it'll take me a long time and thereby slowing down our progress in achieving something. So my goal as an entrepreneur is to build a very efficient system, because the word system, if you think about it, it means save yourself time, energy, and money.
Mm.
So that's all I focus on, is like, how can I create a system where I save myself time, I save myself energy, because I need all of that human capital and brain power to focus on what I'm really good at. And I also want to save money so that I'm not wasting it and doing all these different things. Because if I don't do something correctly the first time, I might have to come back and redo it, or my marketing spend is not going to be as efficient versus if we had nailed it in the first time.
Mm.
So that's really what I try to do, is quickly figure out how we can create systems and efficiencies and use that as our unique competitive advantage.
I started my tech firm back in the 90s, and it's been 93 actually, and so it's 30 years now. And I remember 5 or 6 years in when I started to get bought some companies as well. We got to a certain point. I remember having a picnic, and I remember thinking they all brought their families, and I said, there was 100 people there, 150 people, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, what I started now affects all of these people. It affects all of these families you talked about before, the generations. Now, and I remember kind of struggling with that. I said, "Wow," and kind of getting a little more focused. I really have to refocus. All these families depend on this. Now, when you're working with multiple companies like that, you have to worry about a lot of different families like that. Did that ever affect you at all?
I wouldn't use the word affect,
Hmm.
but I do think about it, and I do use that as a way to keep me motivated and excited, because I'm a firm believer in the more you're given, right, the more you're expected, right? To whom more is given, more is expected.
Hmm.
So if I start out by being responsible for one family, and then all of a sudden now I'm responsible for 100 families, it means that I'm doing something right. It's, I'm a believer in God, I'm a Christian, and there's a parable in the Bible that talks about the three servants. One servant got 5 talents, another servant got 2 talents, and another servant got one. And the master was giving these talents to the servants because he was leaving, going out of town. The first servant, who got five, went and invested the five and doubled the 5 to 10. The second servant, who got two, put it to work and doubled it and had two more. The last one, who was given one, went and dug a hole and put it in there. And when the master came back, he was like, okay, good job. You doubled the five. I'm going to give you more. The one who did two, good job. And then the one who just went and dug a hole and didn't really do anything with it, he actually had the 1 talent he was given taken away and given to the one who had five, right? Because it's a faithful steward. So that's part of the reason why I don't let what might seem as like an enormous responsibility affect me. I actually use that as a way to guide me and
Hmm.
show me that I'm being a good steward with what I've been given. Because if I've been if I was given 5 families to start off with and now I'm responsible for 10, it's a good indicator of me being a good steward of what God has trusted me to steward. But if I start off with 5 and now I have 2,
Mm,
now that's when I need to be thinking about, okay, what's going on here, right? Because in life, if you're not growing, you're dying.
mm.
So if you're not reading books, if you're not, developing yourself, you're actually deteriorating. Same thing with money, right? If you're not growing your money, it's actually depreciating because of inflation. So anything in life needs to grow. Your business needs to grow. Your finances need to grow. Your family needs to grow, not just in more kids, but even just them growing in their knowledge, their capacity, insight, and so many different things. So that's the way I look at it.
It's a better way to look at it. It inspires you. So after I started my business, uh, I gained a lot of weight, Kuda. I went up to 340 pounds. I was eating too much pizza. I was drinking soda. Doctor said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter had just graduated. So I
Hmm.
lost 140 pounds in about a year, year and a half. I ran some triathlons, and people always ask me, how did you do it? They want a simple answer, a simple, quick answer. And my answer is always discipline. I got focused. I got disciplined, and that's what you need in order to do that. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is, I guess we arrive at the same conclusion, but I actually look at it as two C's rather than discipline. So the first C is commitment. Because if you're not committed, you never start. So, first of all, you really need to be committed to whatever goal or outcome you want to achieve. So, in your case, you're like, okay, I want to lose the weight, and you are committed,
Mm,
right? Because trust me, when you have a big, hairy, audacious goal that you want to achieve, it's not going to be easy. That's why it's big, hairy, and audacious. So, it takes the commitment in order for you to actually get started, wake up every morning and do it. But the other C, which commitment on its own won't get you there, is consistency,
mm.
right? You consistently need to go to the gym. You consistently need to eat right. Yes, there might be days here and there where you might feel a little tired or you might not have the energy to do it, but you consistently want to do it, right? Because the way things work is that you start off and those small actions don't really seem like much. But over time, that compounded action leads to an exponential growth, right? So that's why you see that bell curve. The bell curve just doesn't happen. It ends up happening because you're consistently compounding your action over time. So compound interest doesn't just apply to finance, it also applies to action.
Hmm.
You then end up suddenly wake up and you've now lost 100 pounds, but you've lost 100 pounds 1 ounce at a time.
Yeah, that is true. Have you always translated discipline to the two C's?
No, I just came up with this right now.
I say. And do you consider yourself well disciplined? Even as a child, when you started the first business, how you got to America, how you do everything, do you ever consider yourself disciplined, well disciplined, self disciplined?
I consider myself highly motivated.
Hmm.
Like I think I'm probably my toughest critic
Hmm.
because sometimes I know like I could have done better, right? Sometimes in the gym, yes, I might run the 5K, but I know like I could have probably done it faster. I probably could have gone 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees on the incline, right? So I don't know if I can say to myself I'm super disciplined because at the end
Hmm.
of the day, the only person I compete against is myself. I don't compare myself to other people. So because of that, from the outside, when people look at me and maybe they look at what they do, they might say like, "Oh, Kuda is super disciplined," but that's the wrong way to look at it, right? You have to look at it when you compare Kuda and Kuda's potential
Hmm.
because that's where you really see if a person is disciplined. Because if my potential is I have the ability to read 4 pages in a book every single day, but I read two. From someone else, they might say, like, oh, he's reading, so he's super disciplined, but I wasn't disciplined enough to hit my potential. So I want to be very cautious in commenting about me being disciplined or not, right? Especially for the listener, because I want the listener to really just remember that the real person you compete is the person you see when you look in the mirror. So you know for yourself if you're reaching your full potential, if you're being disciplined or not. Don't let the outside dictate that discipline is you doing this, this, and this, and that.
Mm.
In certain cases, it might be true if it's, let's say, professional advice from a doctor and things like that. But the doctor might say, like, okay, you need to run 10 minutes, but maybe physically yourself, you can't really do it for one reason or the other that the doctor might not know. So at the end of the day, I think it's important for individuals to really think through what that means for themselves, but also be the barometer to decide if you're being disciplined or not.
Yeah, I get a decent amount of pushback. People tell me you don't need discipline. And by the way, I don't claim to be the king of discipline. There's some areas that I'm disciplined at and others that I'm not. But I hear things like you don't need discipline, you need compassion, you need love, you need these other things. And discipline really isn't a factor. And to that I say, well, I think you need a certain amount of discipline to do those things, but I certainly don't think it's the end all. But it's what I use to lose a lot of weight, and I just tend to ask people and how they view it. And you gave me your very unique answer.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's compassion is important. Certainly, I'm not ready to rank things. I'm certainly not asking that, but uh like you said, when you define your purpose, I guess everything kind of falls into line, doesn't it?
Well, it also depends with the metric.
Mm,
If it's time with my son, I'm not disciplined,
right.
right? I might be disciplined in making sure that I give him time every single day. But what we do during that time, it's up to him, right?
Mm,
As long as it's not dangerous or harmful to his life, it's he can do whatever he wants, right? So it depends with the context and what you're talking about, because I do think that there's a time and place for discipline. There's a time and place for everything. So if it's you trying to lose weight and looking after your health, yes, discipline is going to be important.
mm,
But if it's maybe like, hey, I need to be spontaneous and have fun with my son and whatnot, maybe you're not as disciplined. You do things that, you know, give him a laugh here and there. So it all depends with the context, and I think if you're having conversations with those people who are now bringing up compassion versus discipline, I think there needs to be defined insight as to in relation to what,
mm.
right? And then once that's grounded, then I think it gives people the context in which to react to it. Because if it's just a blanket statement, we live lives where we have so many different things going on. Joe, let's talk about the hats you wear in a single day, right? I'm guessing you're a dad, right?
Certainly.
You're probably someone's spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone's son, someone's uncle, someone's nephew, someone's business partner, a host, and so many different hats we wear throughout the day. And there are going to be instances and places where discipline is going to be required more than compassion. But there are going to
Mm,
be other instances where compassion is going to be required more than discipline. So context is always important, because I don't think there's kind of like a one size fits all to answer the question. I think being super um, accurate, or maybe really just taking it to a whole nother level in defining what exactly you're referring to, I think is key.
we live in the grays, right? We don't live in black and white. Would you agree?
I don't know. I think that's a very subjective question.
Yeah.
Again, context is important. Um, So help me understand what you mean by that and in what context.
Yeah, I think just with your answer defines that. I don't think everything is black and white. There's context involved, depending on the subject, depending on the situation, depending on what's happening. You need to understand the full context. There's never a true black or white issue, right? It's not yes or no. It's not true or false. We need to understand the full kind of body of the issue.
Got it.
Yeah. Kuda Biza, what motivates you?
Um, to be honest, I don't know. I think it all
Really?
depends with what it is that I'm working on at the time. If it's the cookie business, I'm motivated by feeding people. If it's my
Mm,
personal development brand, I'm motivated by educating people. If it's my family, it's my love for my wife, it's my love for my son. Again, it's context, right? So I can't just say there's one thing that motivates me. I think there's different things that motivate different aspects of my life. So depending on the aspect of my life, um, you will get a different answer for my motivation.
mm. And so then how do you measure success?
You predefine it. Success is predefined. When you are on your weight loss journey, you defined that, hey, I want to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
And you probably were specific enough to say, like, this is the target weight that
Mm,
I want to hit. So you predefine your success. So when you meet that metric, you're now successful. If you're starting a business and you define your success as we want to acquire 1,000 customers, when you hit 1,000 customers, you are now successful. So success is something you predefine. For someone, $1 million might not be a success. If you go to Bill Gates and you say, like, hey, this business is $1 million business, he'll be like, oh, okay, that's cute. Come to me when it's $1 trillion valuation. Because his definition of success is creating a business with $1 trillion market cap. So I don't, you can't, like, you have to predefine the metric that will then trigger for you to say this is a success. So that's how you define success, is exactly that. You define it.
do you celebrate when you achieve a goal?
Only for a moment, and then I move on.
Only for a moment, just for one moment, you give a high five and you move on to the next.
Yeah, attaboy, and then you move on to the next thing. The
Really?
biggest enemy for success is your previous success.
Hmm.
In life, if you spend a lot of time living in the past, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You just continue living in the past. So it's always good to celebrate a success because it's key. Like, you've worked hard for it. Enjoy the moment. Go out for dinner. Have fun. You know, do whatever you need to do to celebrate that moment. But tomorrow, when you wake up, it's history. Now you have to move on to the next thing. Imagine if today you're still going out to dinner to celebrate your graduation, your high school graduation. It was a success whenever you graduated high school, but today it doesn't mean much.
And does that work for everybody? It
I don't
should.
know.
Hmm.
I only answer questions for me.
Right. You're an inspiring man, Kuda. I was so excited when you accepted this. I enjoyed learning about you, your TED Talk, your book, your businesses, your social entrepreneurship. You're inspiring. How can we get in touch with you? Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think the easiest place would be to go to my website, kudabiza.com. There you'll find uh, ways you can get in touch with me. You can fill out a form. You can see my social media links and all that stuff. So I think if you want a one-stop destination with a la carte options to get in touch with me, my website will be the best place to start.
And Kuda is spelled Kuda, Biza, Biza, just like it sounds. Kuda,
Yes.
thank you so much for your time. I look forward maybe one day, having a cup of coffee and watching Chelsea play Man City one day with you. That'd be
So
wonderful.
I actually went to the Etihad.
Did you?
Um, yeah, I went to the Etihad, Chelsea versus Manchester City,
Whoa!
um, when Frank Lampard was still our manager.
Wow!
So I've had that experience. So I think what would be great is for us to then go to the reverse fixture to Stamford Bridge,
I see.
because I think that would be great. But I wish we had met right before the Champions League final, because that would have been a good game to watch.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We all know what happened there, don't we? Yes, yes. And
Yeah,
of course, Arsenal's running away with the league. We'll see what happens. We've got a few more months left, but really, really enjoy. The World Cup will be here in the North America in 26. I'm sure you'll go to a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
games. Yeah, I
That's
will
going
as
to be
well.
exciting times. So hopefully, you get your tickets and you go catch a game or two, because the World Cup is the biggest sporting event. The whole world is watching it, and for you to be there live in person is an amazing thing. So I
Yeah,
appreciate the invitation, and I hope the listeners get some value from what I shared, and looking forward to watching how this platform grows from the sidelines.
very good. Thank you so much, Kuda. I really appreciate your time. You be well.
You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information. The video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. It's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.